Welcome to Weasel Jaw Gaming, and today we're going to be looking at the Sun and Moon Crimson Invasion Destruction Fang theme deck tactics. A little bit of a breakdown of what's in the deck, how to play it, strengths, weaknesses, that kind of stuff. So with that, we'll jump right into it here. This deck is a split deck energy-wise, but not really play-wise when you're talking energy. There are 12 dark energy, and there is 8 psychic energy. There's very little demand for the psychic energy. There really isn't a huge demand for the dark energy either, so it's a pretty flexible deck energy-wise. Popping right over to our Pokemon, we're going to start off with our starters. These are the Pokemon you want to have at the beginning of the match to kind of help things get moving. Sadly, this deck doesn't have a lot. First one we'll talk about is Mawild, Metal type, 80 health. It does have a 2 energy crunch attack that does 30 damage. Flip a coin of heads, discard an energy from your opponent's active Pokemon. Could be useful early on for damage. Main reason this is a starter for us is Call for Family. 1 energy, search your deck for up to 2 basic Pokemon, and put them into your bench. Then shuffle your deck. So if you have Mawild, not much else you want to be working with, Mawild gives you the ability to get some of those other basics out there. A great basic would be a Rangaroo, or if you have any of the other evolutions, but you don't have the basics, Mawild can kind of get things moving for you. Not the strongest starter, but can help out. The other starter that we want to look at is Salander and Salazzle. Now, I don't usually throw a lot of stage 1s out here for starters, but in this case I do. Now, Salander and Salazzle are both psychics. Salander has 60 health, has a 1 energy singe. Your opponent's active Pokemon is now burned. Now, sadly, there's no damage component with this. You just have the burn damage, but that is pretty significant in and of itself. Early on, it would force people to be retreating basic Pokemon or letting them, die due to the burn damage. So you can kind of mess with people early on with that. More importantly, though, is if you can get Salazzle down early. Salazzle's attacks only take 1 energy and only has 110 health. So I shouldn't say only there. 110 health for something that's a stage 1 that you can get down early that only takes 1 energy to be effective. Salazzle can be a really good early game setup to where you really start dominating that early matchup. And you put the opponent on defense early on. First, we'll talk about that second attack there, Severe Poison. It's 1 energy. Your opponent's active Pokemon is now poisoned, but you get to put 4 damage counters instead of 1 on that Pokemon in between turns. So this is a more effective poison, and 4 damage counters per turn, again, kind of like Salandit's burn, early on can really force an opponent to mix up what Pokemon they have where. And 4 damage every time that you change players is a lot of damage. So they're going to have to get that guy off the bench real quick, even if he's not an early game basic kind of Pokemon. That's a lot of damage. Nasty Plot is arguably even better, though. Nasty Plot doesn't do any damage, but allows you to search your deck for up to 2 cards and put them into your hand, then shuffle your deck. There's no damage component here, but being able to pull out any 2 cards you want from your deck is really powerful. You could pull out specific trainers that you want. You could pull out specific Pokemon that you need to evolve your other basic Pokemon. Or if you're missing the basic Pokemon, you just pull those basics so that you could use those evolutions that are in your hand. It's really a powerful card to be playing. The downside is you only have 2 Salandits and 1 Salazzle. But if you do start the game with a Salandit, especially if you have a way to pull Salazzle, if you have some Pokeballs in your hand, specifically your Timer Balls or your Great Ball, or you have a lot of draws so that you think you might be able to get Salazzle, starting with Salandit can be very powerful. There are no defensive Pokemon in this deck. There's a couple Pokemon that can kind of knock energy off people, but that's really kind of shady to call that a real strong defense. So really, we're really not looking at defense cards here. So after that, we're just jumping into our power cards. That's really it. You got a couple starters, and then everything else is based around damage. Now, our first damage dealer is a little on the weak side. Houndour and Hounder Doom. You have 3 Houndours and 2 Houndooms. Both dark types. Houndour has 60 health, has a rear kick and a darkness fang. Neither of them do a lot of damage. You could put them out there as a starter and start doing some damage early on, because Houndoom isn't all that impressive. So it's not like you need to preserve your Houndours to get your Houndooms out there. Houndoom has 110 health, has a 2 energy Fire Fang for 30 damage, and your opponent is now burned. And also has a 90 damage Puncturing Fangs. This attack's damage isn't affected by resistance. So that's kind of nice. You don't have to worry about any resistance they might have. And 90 damage is okay, but it's not great. So you're really rarely going to be counting on Houndoom to do damage unless he's your only option that you have. So not great, but he's there. Next up, we're going to be talking about Stuffel and Stuffel's evolutionary Beware. The Stuffel's 70 health, fighting type, has a 2 energy flop for 30 damage. Not amazing. Not really what you want to be using Stuffel for. Beware, on the other hand, stage 1 evolution, 130 health, colorless type, has an ability called Rake It In. When you play this Pokemon from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon during your turn, you may draw 3 cards. So that's a nice little bonus. When you evolve Stuffel to Beware, you get 3 draws. Beware also has a 3 energy Dangerous Blow that does 60 damage, not all that impressive. But if your opponent's active Pokemon is a basic Pokemon, the attack does 60 more damage. Now it's impressive. So we have a 3 energy, potentially 120 damage attack. There are a lot of basics in certain decks. And those basics can be a big part of the play for those decks. Being able to do 120 damage also knocks out a lot of those basics. There's a few of those basics that peak over the 130 hit point range, but a lot of them are sitting at 120. So Beware can be a big threat to those basics that play a major part of damage dealing in decks. Kind of limited there. Now, against other basics that you might see, his 60 damage is probably going to be enough. Bumping it up to 120 means that he can even knock out, like, I forget the hippo's name, but there's a basic hippo that tends to have a lot of health even in basic form. So Beware can be very powerful in the right situation. You do have 2 Beware and 3 Stuffels, so it gives you a lot of opportunity there. The next one we're going to talk about is a Rangaroo. Rangaroo has 120 health, is a colorless type, does have an ability called Instruct. Once during your turn, before your attack, you may draw cards until you have 3 cards in your hand. So if you're in a situation where you have drained your hand, a Rangaroo will give you a couple cards back. And that's a pretty good situation to be in. He can always keep you up to 3 cards. So that allows you to kind of cycle through that deck a little bit faster. Because of Beware's draw and a Rangaroo's draw, that's probably why you don't have a lot of starters that have draw abilities. I always like having a starter or 2 in the deck that has a 1 energy for a 1 card or 2 card draw. We don't have that here. But we have a lot of our higher damage dealers that have some built-in draw capability. So your mid-game drawing is actually going to be a little bit stronger than your early game draw. Now, a Rangaroo's attack isn't bad, again, in the right situations. Psychic does 60 damage, again, not all that impressive for 3 energy, but the attack does 20 more damage times the amount of energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon. So against a 3 energy opponent, you're going to be doing 120 damage. Again, against those basics that are higher power, you're probably going to be able to knock them out in one shot. Against an energy that has more against an opponent that has more energy on their active Pokemon, some real big hitter that's maybe got 5 energy, now you're going to be doing 160 damage. So there's a lot of flexibility here for a Rangaroo to be knocking out those really high energy Pokemon and being able to do that big hit against those specific targets. Sad part is we only have one Rangaroo in the deck. So right now we're looking at 2 Bewares that are good against basics and 1 Rangaroo that's good against high energy opponents. Next up is our featured Pokemon and his line. We have 3 Dinos and 2 Zweiliouses. This is a dark line, clearly. Dino has 70 health, has a 2 energy headbutt for 20 and a 3 energy surprise attack for 60, but a 50% chance of total failure there. Not very impressive. Zweilious has 90 health, has a 2 energy headbutt for 30 damage, and a 3 energy double hit. That's 60 damage times the amount of heads with 2 flips. So that means 0, 60, or 120 damage for that 3 energy. Okay in a pinch, not all that dependable. Hydreigon, though, is not too bad. 160 health, dark type. Has an ability called Weed Out. Now, Weed Out allows you once during your turn before your attack, you may choose 3 of your benched Pokemon, then discard your other benched Pokemon. On the surface, this sounds a little flaky. Why would I want to do this? However, there is a reason for it. If you happen to have someone that you've pulled off the active line because they're damaged, heavily damaged, if they take another hit, they're going to likely be knocked out. Instead of leaving them on the bench where the opponent may have something that can do damage to your benched Pokemon, this allows you to just discard that Pokemon and take away that opportunity to get a prize card. So that's not a bad use of it. Another decent use of it is just clearing your bench from less desirable Pokemon. Maybe early on, because you didn't have a lot of options, you played a Houndour, you evolved them up to a Hounder Doom, or you have a Mawild on your bench just because you needed to fill that space with maybe something that you would sacrifice in play. But now you'd rather get some other cards that are useful. That Weed Out ability allows you to just discard that stuff that you don't plan to use anyways and frees up those bench spaces for a Rangaroo or Beware or another Hydreigon. So Weed Out can be useful. You do want to be careful because you only get to keep 3 of your bench Pokemon. You will have to discard 1 or 2 of them, depending on how many you have on the bench. Dark Destruction, his only attack, is a 3 energy attack. Does 120 damage. Not overly great here. 120 damage is kind of the low end of your damage dealer range to really be effective and scary out there. So kind of suffers there. However, it does have a little ability attached to it. You may discard an energy card from this Pokemon. And if you do, you discard an energy from your opponent's active Pokemon. What this means is that if you sacrifice one of your energy from Hydreigon, you're forcing the opponent to sacrifice an energy from their Pokemon. If they can't get an energy, up to their highest energy attack, you may really be reducing the amount of damage they can do. If nothing else, you're draining energy. They have to keep putting energy on that Pokemon, and you could be draining them. Since this deck isn't very energy dependent, nothing takes more than 3 energy. And it's really not even that dependent type-wise. I mean, Hydreigon takes 2 dark, Hounder Doom takes 1 dark, Salazzle takes 1 psychic. Otherwise, everyone's just kind of whatever. It really means you could put your opponent in a bad situation where they just don't have any energy. So it's really kind of a luck of the draw thing there. Maybe they have a lot of energy or a lot of energy cards. But as long as you're sitting energy rich, it's not a bad little secondary ability to take advantage of, just to really force their hand, force their play, or make them waste a lot of energy. Now it's time to talk about our trainer cards. Trainers are all of our trainers, our supporter items, that kind of stuff that help kind of support our Pokemon. With this, we always start off with our draws. And so for draws, we do have 3 Hows. Hows are straightforward and simple. Draw 3 cards. You want to use those pretty much as soon as you get them, if you can. Professor Kukuis, we have 2 Professor Kukuis. Draw 2 cards and adds 20 damage to your active Pokemon. So in this deck, I would try to save Kukui for that damage bonus, if at all possible. However, if you need that cycle, if you need those draws, absolutely use them. Your damage Pokemon do a fair amount of damage and won't necessarily need Kukui to really knock anything out. We also have one Sophocles, and he's kind of a problem. In a lot of theme decks, Sophocles would be really good. However, in this theme deck, I'm not a huge fan of Sophocles. He has you discard 2 cards to draw 4. The reason I don't like him is there isn't a lot of cards I want to get rid of in this deck. For Pokemon, maybe your Hounders and Hounder Dooms along with your Mawilds. Not a lot of trainer cards I'd be getting rid of. Unless maybe you're set for cards, you could get rid of your Nest Balls if you have the Pokemon you need and want. Otherwise, there's not a lot of options here. So if you have cards you can ditch, Sophocles is a great draw. If you don't have anything you can get rid of, then Sophocles might just kind of sit around in your hand for a while. After that, we have our Pokemon pulling ability. Oh, I should say also with draws, we of course have Salazzle, Rangaroo, and Beware. For pulling Pokemon, we have our Nest Ball. Nest Ball allows you to search your deck for basic Pokemon and put it onto your bench, then shuffle your deck. Best used for probably a Rangaroo, because he is a basic, does pretty good damage. Or if you have the evolutions, you have Zweilous, Hydreigon, Beware, Salazzle, and you need to get that basic version out there so that you can start getting the evolutions, Nest Ball is the way to go. You do have 2 timer balls. Flip 2 coins for each head. Search your deck for an evolutionary Pokemon. There's a bit of luck tied to this one. You might not get any heads. You might get 1. You might get 2. So it kind of depends on what's going on there. But this is best used to, of course, cap off any evolutions that you're working with. To pull your Beware, to pull your Hydreigon or Zweilous. Or, especially early on, if you have Salandit, you can use this to pull Salazzle and have a really good, strong, early damage attack. We also have one Great Ball. Great Ball allows you to look at the top 7 cards of your deck and pull any one Pokemon out of there and put it into your hand. It's kind of the in-between between a Nest Ball and a Timer Ball. You can use it to pull basics or evolutions, but it's only in the top 7 cards. You might be unlucky and not have any options at all, which kind of sucks. We also have a Rescue Stretcher. That allows you to pull Pokemon back from discard. Now, you can either pull 3 Pokemon from discard and put them into your deck, or you can pull a single Pokemon from discard and put it straight into your hand. That's the option I prefer to use with Rescue Stretcher. Rescue Stretcher is best used to basically revive a knocked out Pokemon. So you have a Hydreigon in the active spot and you have a Zweilous ready to go on the bench. Or you have a Beware in the active spot and you have a Stuffel on the bench ready to go. When your Beware or your Hydreigon get knocked out, you can use Rescue Stretcher to pull them back from the discard, immediately evolve up your Zweilous or your Stuffel, and have them ready to go in battle for you. So that's really where Rescue Stretcher plays the strongest, is just getting that specific Pokemon back to do an evolution and get your Pokemon back into play. Now for pulling Pokemon, we also, of course, have a Mawild, which not a great starter, not someone I would be looking to use, but it is there. Next up is energy, and this deck is actually pretty friendly when it comes to energy. No one takes more than 3 energy. Salazzle takes 1 energy that's specifically psychic type. The Hydreigon line takes 2 energy that are dark based. Hounder Doom takes 1 energy that's dark based. So not a lot of restrictions. No one takes more than 3 energy. So these energy cards are really just kind of, icing on the cake, so to speak. We have 1 energy retrieval. So if you do discard any energy retrieval allows you to pull those 2 basic energy from the discard pile into your hand. We also have experience share. It's an item that you put on someone that's on your bench. When your active Pokemon gets knocked out, you can conserve one of the energy attached to that Pokemon and put it on the Pokemon that has this experience share item. That's a real great way to kind of move some of that energy back from an endangered Pokemon and stay more energy efficient. Even better, we have the Wishful Baton. Now, this is an item that you're going to be putting on probably your active Pokemon or Pokemon you plan to make active soon. When that Pokemon gets knocked out, this allows you to move up to 3 basic energy from that Pokemon onto one of your benched Pokemon. So this is a great situation, especially if you have Rescue Stretcher. You could have a Zweilous on your bench and a Hydreigon in your active spot. If that Hydreigon has Wishful Baton, he gets knocked out, you can move all 3 of his energy to Zweilous. And you can use Rescue Stretcher to then pull Hydreigon back out of discard and evolve Zweilous. You can also move that energy back and forth between. It doesn't have to be Hydreigon to a Zweilous or to another Hydreigon, because all of your big damage dealers have 3 energy, and there's not a lot of energy dependency for types. Beware, a Rangaroo, Hydreigon are all good options for moving that energy back and forth using Wishful Baton. So that can be a very powerful item to have in your hand, especially with Rescue Stretcher. Then we have our control cards. So we do have one switch card. This allows you to switch your active Pokemon with one of your benched Pokemon. And we have Escape Rope, which forces your opponent to switch their Pokemon and then allows you to switch yours also. Not a lot going on there. You have one of each, but it gives you a little bit of flexibility there. Now, Switch isn't overly dependent in this deck because no one in the deck takes more than 2 energy to retreat. You don't have a lot of energy dependency. So doing a actual just straight up retreat isn't always necessarily a bad idea here to kind of, if you got a situation where Beware is really good right now, but once you knock out the Pokemon you're fighting, a Rangaroo is better for who they bring in next. Well, you can retreat Beware for 2 energy and then build him up later. So that's it for the cards in the deck. We've covered our Pokemon, we've covered our trainers. Now it's kind of time to look at our stats. And this isn't a bad deck all around. It's kind of middle of the range. Power, we're looking at a 3. There are some good attackers in here. Rangaroo, Beware, Hydreigon. They can all do 120 plus damage in some situations, but Beware and Rangaroo are highly situational. They have to be going against the right Pokemon in the right kind of setup, which somewhat limits the amount of damage they're really going to be doing. Beware is great against basics, but not that great against anything else. Rangaroo is really great against high energy opponents. But if you're facing a really efficient deck where people can do damage with 1 or 2 energy, then a Rangaroo is a lot weaker. So we're stuck at a 3 just because those guys have so many restrictions to the damage, and Hydreigon's only doing 120. Speed is our ability to get our damage dealers in place and doing damage, and it's not too bad here. We do have some different draws, some different Pokeballs. We don't take a lot of energy on any of our damage dealers. Salazzle can get out early and start doing some damage. Beware takes an evolution. Hydreigon takes 2 evolutions. So we're sitting at a speed of 3. Not amazing, but not bad. Agility is our ability to kind of change course mid-game, adapt to different situations, put different Pokemon out there, get different Pokemon up and ready to go. And again, we're sitting at a 3. We don't have a lot of switches, a lot of ways to change up our Pokemon, but we have a decent retreat cost across the board. It's not all that hard to get any of our damage dealers kind of up and ready to go, since everyone's kind of fairly low on energy requirements. So again, we're sitting at a 3 for agility. Energy efficiency, we are sitting at a 4. There's 20 energy in the deck. There's some really nice energy items in this deck, and no one takes a lot of energy or has very tough restrictions on the energy they need. So energy-wise, it's a pretty flexible deck, and that's why we're sitting at a 4. Complexity of this deck is sitting at a 2. There's nothing all that tricky. You just need to know when to use Beware or Rangaroo or when to put Hydreigon out there. And that's really about it. Resilience is a 3. We are sitting with our damage dealers at 120, 130, 160 health. There isn't a lot of defense, so to speak, but there's some fairly high health Pokemon in this deck, so we're at a 3. Type advantage also sitting at a 3. Not bad, not great. We have a spread of Pokemon. However, they kind of focus into 2 areas. We have a lot of dark, and we have a lot of colorless that we're depending on. So in those situations, the one bad thing is they're all weak to fighting. If you're going up against a fighting deck, you're going to be hurting really bad. Your biggest damage dealers are all weak to fighting. At that point, you're going to be stuck depending on like Mawild and Salazzle. Against most other Pokemon, though, you're not really going to be doing too bad. You're fairly resilient to psychic energy with some of your damage dealers. You can go against most other types other than fighting pretty darn well. You just have to really watch out for fighting. So type advantage is 3, just due to the variety of cards we have here. And manipulation, we really don't have much. A little bit of energy dumping, and of course the escape rope, so our manipulation's sitting at a 1. All around, not a bad deck. The damage is a little dependent upon your opponent's deck and their play style. You got to kind of adapt to situations there. However, not horrible damage. There's nothing huge here. There's nothing groundbreaking here, but it can actually compete okay with, the current Sword and Shield type theme decks. It's not a bad deck to play even in today's meta. So, not all that bad. Hopefully you feel a little more comfortable about the Crimson Invasion Destruction Fang deck. Hopefully you know a little bit more about it. Great way if you're doing online to do dark energy missions or challenges, because there are some evolutions in here. There is a way to do some damage for dark, so it's not a bad deck there. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.